I've recorded multiple videos today as a way of planning. This one is not actually planned out. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be long, but it's going to be messy. And I say that because as an organizational psychologist and a licensed professional counselor, the things that happen in the world, in society, I see through a human lens, but I also see them through those two lenses, right? Organization and as a licensed professional counselor. So today is the day that Renee Goodman was shot. Today is January 7th. Renee Nicole Goodman was shot today in Minneapolis by ICE agents. So that is the background, the context of what I'm going to say. As a licensed professional counselor and an organizational psychologist who specializes in climate and culture, I can't help but look at these things through a climate and culture and mental health lens. These things are traumatic for people. These things are traumatic, and they bring those things into workplaces. There are people who actually stood there and saw this happen. That's not something that you can erase from their minds. These are things that shift the way that people see themselves, others, and the world. What I've been trained in EMDR, but I also became trained in cognitive processing therapy because I had clients who didn't like EMDR. And in cognitive processing therapy, you look at traumatic incidents in lives in general, right? We often think of PTSD as like service members, but we're talking about traumatic incidents. It could be moral injury. It can be a divorce. It can be the death of someone. But what you look at are, number one, how that incident impacts three things: the way that they look at themselves, the world, and other people. So there are 5 things that are impacted: safety, trust, power control, intimacy, and esteem. Each of these things have everything to do with those 3 areas that we use to look through. How do we look at ourselves? How do we look at others? How do we look at society? How safe am I? Can I keep myself safe? Will other people keep me safe? Is society safe? Power and control. Can I give power to other people? How much power do other people have over me? How does society handle power and control if I give it to them? Esteem. Do I esteem myself or I do esteem others? How intimate do I let people get with me? And how intimate do I get with others and society? All 5 of those things show up when something like this happens. And it's interesting that there aren't more people speaking out about the impacts these are having. It's interesting that there isn't a lens coming for those things that has to do with traumatic incidents, that has to do with how do these things impact the people who are there, who are seeing people snatched, who are seeing guns on their streets that they wouldn't normally see, who are seeing our military walking streets. Now, let's also pause for a moment and think, this is what other countries deal with when we come to be an occupying force. Just think about that for a second. But now I want to say this. As a licensed professional counselor, as a human being, I feel like this needs to be talked about. And let me tell you one reason why. One of the things that I hold dear is my training in mental health counseling. And I think about the foundation of that was social change. I had to write about social change in every single class. Think about taking a psychopharmacology class, which was one of my favorites, and having to write about social change. How are you going to use this class to make a difference, to address policies, to address change for people? How do you do that, right? But I can't let go of the fact that we also had to look at codes of ethics. And as a licensed professional counselor, the very first code of ethics, the very first standard, and I'm looking at it, it is standard A1, and it is client welfare. And yes, people will say, well, these people aren't your clients. Okay, that's fine. It is the lens through which I look at the world. And let me read to you what it says. My primary responsibility as a counselor is this. The primary responsibility of counselors is to respect the dignity and promote the welfare of clients. In my world, that is actually all people. No, these people may not be my clients, but if they were, I'd have to look at them through that lens. So why not start now? How do you promote the dignity and the welfare of those people? It is through a social change, a social justice lens, period. So with that said, what I hope is number one, we begin to think of the impacts of these incidents from a different lens. And maybe it takes multiple lenses, kind of like a kaleidoscope, right? That there's multiple ways to look at this. But one of them is to attach climate and culture. What is the climate of our country? What is the climate of that area? What is the culture, the true culture of our country? What is the culture of that area? What is the culture of the organization like ICE? What is their culture? What is their climate? What is the climate and culture of that neighborhood, of that city? And then if you wrap it in those 5 things that are impacted when something traumatic happens, and you look through another lens of saying, how does that impact the way a person looks at themselves, others, in the world, we can begin to have some really rich conversations to better say there's some serious changes that need to happen, fundamental changes that need to happen. And as a therapist, as an organizational psychologist, those are the lenses that I use. Those are the places that I begin to see what are the changes that need to happen. How do I use what I have? What do I use? How do I use my knowledge, my experience, the lenses that I have, the education, the skills, the talents? How do I use those for social change, for social justice, to make a difference in the world? How do I do that? And one way is saying this, and another way is actually having those conversations. Because without the dialogue, not just communication, we communicate all the time. People talk about communication all the time. Communication is eyes rolling. Communication is like the little giggle that I had, right? Communication is sucking teeth. Communication is clapping. Communication is sighing. But dialogue is asking the questions about what did the sucking teeth mean? What was behind that? How are you feeling? Dialogue is what had you roll your eyes? What did you hear? What did that mean to you? We have to be willing to have some really rich dialogue. So here's a question to take with you. What have you heard, seen, and felt over the past 3 weeks in your home, in your city, in your state, in the country, in the world? How has it impacted you in those 5 areas? How has it impacted the way that you see yourself, others, and the world? And who can you have dialogue with about those things? I hope that this makes a difference for you. Share with me what you heard for yourself, for others, and the world. Let's have dialogue. I'm Dr. Sidney Gaskins, your neotherapist. Thank you for taking this time with me.